At the singing competition hall, Henry, the only black contestant, arrived hoping that winning the competition would give him enough money for his mother's surgery. Suddenly, Vicky, a staff member, walked over, mocked his appearance, and slapped his registration form onto the floor, claiming he couldn't possibly afford the entry fee. Henry didn't argue. He simply opened an old shoebox and poured every dollar he had onto the table, leaving Vicky speechless. That moment put him on the stage where he sang with everything he had, unaware that one judge's reaction was about to change his life forever. Before we go back, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe because tomorrow I've got something extra special for you. We're looking for refined young gentlemen, not street kids who'll dirty up our stage. Vicky Harper didn't even look up from her laptop when she said it. Her manicured nails kept clicking across the keyboard with that annoying precision. Henry stood on the other side of the registration desk, his worn hoodie still damp from the walk over. He'd heard the words clearly, but his brain needed a second to process them, to confirm that yes, this woman had actually just said that to his face. "I'm here to register for the talent competition," he said, keeping his voice steady. Now Vicky looked up. Her eyes traveled from his face down to his mud-stained sneakers, lingering on every tear in his jeans, every frayed edge of his hoodie. When her gaze finally made it back to his face, her expression had settled into something that looked like disgust. "How old are you?" 10. Vicky picked up the form Henry had placed on the desk with 2 fingers, holding it away from her body. Her eyes scanned the paper quickly, her lips pressing into a thin line. "Henry Brooks." She said his name like it was distasteful. "No phone number, no email address. We don't have a computer right now." "I see." Vicky set the form down without smoothing it out. "Henry, let me be direct. This program is designed for children with proper training. Our participants have been taking voice lessons since they were 5, 6 years old. They have coaches, stage experience." She leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms. "What do you have?" Henry thought about the supply closet at the supermarket where Mom worked, how he'd go there after school and sing while she finished her shift. The acoustics were good, surrounded by all those boxes. He thought about practicing in the bathroom at home because the tiles made his voice sound fuller. "I can sing," he said simply. Vicky laughed. The sound bounced off the walls, sharp and cruel. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm sure you can. But this is different. This is the Community Arts Center. We have standards." Henry's jaw clenched. He could feel heat crawling up his neck. His hands curled into fists at his sides, and he had to remind himself why he was here. For Mom, for that number the doctor had written down, 68,000. "I have the registration fee." Vicky's smile sharpened. "The fee is $240, Henry. That's not pocket change." "I know. And your mother approved this, sending you out in the rain with that much money?" Vicky's eyebrow arched. "That seems irresponsible." Something in Henry's chest tightened. "She's sick. She's in the hospital." For a split second, something flickered across Vicky's face, but it vanished quickly. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, though her tone suggested otherwise. "But that doesn't change reality. This competition isn't for children without proper preparation. You'd be setting yourself up for embarrassment." "I won't fail." "You don't know that." "Yes, I do." The certainty in his voice made Vicky pause. Then she picked up his registration form again, held it up to the light, and, without warning, let it drop. The paper fluttered down and landed directly in the puddle of rainwater around Henry's feet. Henry stared at his form lying in the dirty water. He watched the paper darken as it soaked up the puddle, watched his carefully written letters start to blur. Within seconds, it was ruined. "Oops," Vicky said flatly. She reached for a tissue. "How clumsy of me." Henry's vision went red at the edges. Every muscle tensed. He imagined flipping that desk, watching her laptop crash to the floor. His breathing came faster, nails digging into his palms. But then he thought about Mom, about her thin hand in his, about the way she'd looked at him and said, "You're my strong boy." He crouched down slowly and picked up the soggy paper. Water dripped from it, running down his wrists. He pressed it against his hoodie, leaving wet marks across his chest. Vicky was wiping her hands with the tissue now, cleaning each finger individually. "You know what I think, Henry. Save your money. Buy yourself some decent clothes. Or better yet, help your mother with her medical bills. I'm sure she needs it more than you need to chase some fantasy." The door behind Vicky opened. A man walked in from the offices, tall and wearing an expensive leather jacket. He was scrolling through his phone. "Vicky, I need the participant list for Friday," he said without looking up. "The tech crew wants to know." He stopped mid-sentence. His thumb froze on his phone screen. Henry had turned at the sound, and now the man was staring at him. His face had gone pale, mouth slightly open. The phone slipped in his hand and he caught it awkwardly. The man's dark eyes were locked on Henry's face, not his dirty clothes, just his face, his eyes. "Who is this?" the man asked, his voice rough. Vicky straightened. "Mr. Harrington, this is just a walk-in. I was explaining that our program requires—" "Cole Harrington," Henry interrupted. He recognized the name from the flyer. "You're the guest judge." Cole seemed to shake himself. "Yeah, that's me." His voice was quiet now, careful. "What's your name?" "Henry Brooks." Something passed across Cole's face when he heard the last name. His jaw tightened. "Brooks," he repeated slowly. "Yes, sir." Strange silence. Vicky looked between them, confused. Henry just stood there with his ruined form against his chest, water dripping onto the floor. Cole forced himself to focus. "What's going on here?" "Nothing of concern," Vicky said quickly. "I was simply explaining our standards." "She dropped my form in the water." Henry's voice came out stronger than expected, and she said I'd dirty up the stage. Cole's expression changed. His eyebrows drew together. "You said what?" "Mr. Harrington, I was maintaining our standards." "Did you say that to him?" Vicky's mouth opened and closed. The exact wording may have been, "Did you or didn't you?" Vicky glanced at Henry, nervousness crossing her face. "I may have expressed concerns about proper preparation." "Right." Cole looked at the wet floor, at Henry's soaked form, then back at Vicky. "What's the registration fee?" $240, Henry answered. Cole's eyes came back to him. "You have that?" Henry nodded. He bent down and picked up the shoebox by his feet. Old Nike box, corners patched with duct tape. The cardboard was soft from being opened and closed hundreds of times. "Henry, perhaps we should discuss." Vicky started, but Henry was already lifting the lid. He turned it upside down over her desk. The money exploded out. Quarters bounced across the desk. Dollar bills scattered across her keyboard. Pennies hit the floor with sharp pings. Nickels spun before falling flat. Vicky jerked back so fast her chair hit the wall. Her hands flew up. Henry started sorting immediately, smoothing each bill, stacking them in neat piles. His hands moved with practiced efficiency. $1 here, $5 there, quarters in a separate pile. Cole moved closer. He wasn't watching the money. He was watching Henry's hands, the calluses on his palms, the dirt under his fingernails, the automatic precision. 4 minutes of rustling bills and clinking coins. Finally, Henry looked up. $240, not a penny short. Vicky stared at the money. "Where did you get this?" "I earned it." "Earned it how?" "Mowing lawns, washing cars, whatever work I could find." Henry met her eyes. "Took me a year." A year of 5 a.m. Saturdays. A year of blistered hands. A year of dumping earnings into this box and watching the pile grow so slowly. "You're 10 years old," Vicky said weakly. "Yes, ma'am." Cole was staring at Henry with that strange expression, like he was looking at a ghost. "You earned all of this yourself? For a singing competition?" Henry hesitated. He thought about Mom in that hospital bed, about stage 3, about $68,000, about the competition prize, $75,000, the only number bigger than $68,000 that he could reach. "Yes, sir." Vicky pulled a sanitizing wipe from her drawer, scrubbing each finger. "Even with the fee paid, you need to understand what you're walking into. The other participants have been training since they were toddlers." "Then he'll work harder." Cole's voice cut through. He picked up a blank form and handed it to Henry. "Fill this out. Clean copy." Vicky's head snapped toward him. "Mr. Harrington, as program director—" "And I don't care." Cole's tone made Vicky go silent. "This competition is open to any child who can pay the fee. That's what we advertised." "Are you suggesting we exclude certain applicants based on economic background?" Vicky's face flushed red. "Of course not." "Good. We're done here." Vicky began collecting the money with her fingertips, dropping each piece into an envelope like they were contaminated. "Fine. He can register. But when he embarrasses himself, don't blame me." Henry filled out the new form carefully. When he finished, he slid it across. Vicky stamped it hard. "Preliminary round is Friday at 6 p.m. Don't be late." "I will." Henry picked up his empty shoebox and turned toward the door. His heart was hammering, but he kept his shoulders straight. He was almost to the door when Cole spoke. "Henry." He stopped, turned back. Cole stood with his hands in his pockets, and there was something in his expression like pain, like recognition. "Good luck," Cole said quietly. Henry nodded once, then pushed through the door into the rain. Behind him, Vicky's sharp voice. "That child is going to humiliate himself." And Cole's response, barely audible. "Maybe, or maybe we're all about to be surprised." The apartment smelled like bleach and something medicinal that Henry couldn't quite name. He'd scrubbed the bathroom that morning before school, trying to get rid of the mildew that kept coming back, no matter how many times he cleaned it. The faucet in the kitchen was dripping again, that slow, steady drip that drove him crazy at night when he was trying to sleep. Henry stood on a chair now, wrench in hand, trying to tighten the connection under the sink. His arms ached from holding them up for so long, and his fingers kept slipping on the metal. He'd watched a YouTube video at the library about fixing faucets, but the guy in the video had made it look a lot easier than it actually was. "Baby, you don't have to do that." Henry looked over his shoulder. His mom, Diane, was standing in the doorway of her bedroom, one hand braced against the frame for support. She'd lost more weight since the hospital stay. Her cheekbones were sharp now, visible in a way that made Henry's stomach hurt. The scarf wrapped around her head was slipping, showing patches of scalp where her hair had fallen out. "I got it, Mom." Henry turned back to the faucet, giving the wrench another twist. "Just needs to be tighter. Henry James Brooks." Her voice was firmer now, with that edge mothers get when they're about to put their foot down. "Get down from there. Almost done. Now." Henry sighed and climbed down from the chair. Water dripped onto his shirt from where he'd been working. He wiped his hands on his jeans and looked at his mom. Really looked at her. She was wearing the same pajamas she'd had on for 3 days. There were dark circles under her eyes that looked like bruises. "You should be resting," he said. Diane moved slowly into the kitchen, each step careful and measured. She reached out and touched Henry's face, her palm cool against his cheek. "And you should be playing with your friends, being a kid." Henry pulled away gently. "I don't have time for that." "Baby." "Mom, don't." Henry's voice came out sharper than he intended. He took a breath, tried again. "I'm fine. We're fine." But they weren't fine. The stack of medical bills on the kitchen counter proved that. Henry had gone through them yesterday while his mom was sleeping, had added up all the numbers with shaking hands. The total kept growing. The latest one, the one that had arrived 3 days ago in the red envelope, was for the upcoming surgery. The one the doctors said she needed if she wanted to live. $68,000. The number sat in Henry's brain like a weight. He'd lie awake at night and see it written on the ceiling in glowing numbers. $68,000. It might as well have been 68 million. "I talked to the hospital today," Diane said quietly. She was leaning against the counter now, like standing was taking all her energy. "They gave us 20 days to come up with at least half. If we can't..." She didn't finish the sentence. Henry knew what happened if they couldn't. The surgery got canceled. The cancer kept growing. His mom died. Simple as that. "I'm going to win that competition," Henry said. His hands were clenched at his sides. "The prize is $75,000. That's enough. That's more than enough." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "Henry, baby, please. You can't put this on yourself. You're 10 years old. I'm the man of the house." "No." Diane shook her head and tears spilled down her cheeks. "No, baby. You're my son. You're my child. This isn't your responsibility." But it was. Henry knew it was. Because if he didn't do something, if he just sat around being a kid like his mom wanted, then she'd die. And he couldn't let that happen. He wouldn't. He thought about his father, the man his mom refused to talk about. All Henry knew was that his dad had been a singer, that he'd left before Henry was born, and that his mom's eyes went dead whenever Henry asked about him. "He made his choice," was all she'd ever say. "We don't need him." But maybe they did need him. Maybe if his dad knew. No. Henry pushed the thought away. His father had left, had chosen his career over his family, had decided that a baby would tie him down and keep him from being successful. Henry had overheard his mom talking to her sister on the phone once, Late at night, when she thought he was asleep, he'd heard the whole story. How his father had said he needed freedom to create. How he'd walked out and never looked back. So fine, they'd do it without him. Henry walked to his room, barely big enough for his twin mattress on the floor and a plastic crate that held his clothes. On the wall, he'd taped up the competition flyer. The words were printed in bold letters. Youth Talent Showcase. Grand prize, $75,000 plus exclusive training contract. Beneath it, he'd taped the hospital bill, the one with $68,000 in red numbers at the bottom. Henry picked up a roll of athletic tape from his crate, the kind coaches use to wrap sprained ankles. He'd found it in a dumpster behind the high school. He tore off a strip and wrapped it around his wrist, tight enough to feel it. Then he took a marker and wrote on the tape, in capital letters, "Protect Mom." He stared at the words for a moment, then wrapped another strip around his other wrist. Same message. His hands didn't shake this time. From the kitchen, he heard his mom crying, quiet sobs that she was trying to muffle. Henry closed his eyes and took a breath. "I got this, Mom," he whispered to himself. "I got this." That night, Henry lay on his mattress and stared at the ceiling. The faucet in the kitchen was dripping again. He hadn't fixed it right. Each drop echoed in the quiet apartment like a tiny hammer. Drip, drip, drip. 20 days. The surgery was scheduled for 20 days from now, which meant he had 19 days to win the competition, collect the prize money, and pay the hospital. It was tight, really tight, but it was possible. Henry rolled onto his side and looked at the words on his wrists. Protect Mom. The tape was already starting to peel at the edges, but the message was clear. His mom appeared in the doorway, a shadow backlit by the hallway light. "Baby, you awake?" "Yeah." She came in slowly and sat on the edge of his mattress. The springs creaked under her weight, what little weight she had left. She reached out and took his hand, her fingers tracing over the athletic tape on his wrist. "What's this?" she asked softly. "Just something I'm doing." Diane's thumb rubbed across the words. Henry watched her read them in the dim light. When she looked up, her eyes were wet again. "Oh, baby." Her voice cracked. You can't do this. This is too much." "I'm doing it anyway." "Henry." "Mom." "Stop." Henry sat up and looked at her directly. "I know you want me to be a kid. I know you want me to go play basketball or whatever, but I can't. Because if I don't do something, you're going to die. And I'm not going to let that happen. So you can either help me or you can stay out of my way. But I'm not stopping." The words came out harder than he meant them to. More grown up, like he was the parent and she was the child. Diane stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled him into a hug, holding him so tight he could barely breathe. Her body shook with sobs. "Okay," she whispered into his hair. "Okay, baby, but promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that after this, after the competition, you'll let yourself be 10 again. Just for a little while." Henry didn't answer. He couldn't promise that. Because even after the competition, even after the surgery, there would still be bills, still be rent, still be 100 things that needed taking care of. But he held his mom and let her cry, and he pretended like maybe someday he could be just a kid again. The faucet kept dripping in the kitchen. Drip, drip, drip like a countdown. The auditorium at the Community Arts Center was bigger than Henry expected. Rows of red velvet seats stretched back into darkness, and stage lights hung from the ceiling like mechanical spiders. The air smelled like dust and old wood and the nervous sweat of 50 kids waiting backstage. Henry stood in the wings, watching the other contestants. They all looked like they belonged here. Designer clothes, professional haircuts, parents hovering nearby with water bottles and vocal spray and words of encouragement. A boy about Henry's age was warming up near the curtain, running through scales while his mom, dressed in a pantsuit that probably cost more than Henry's rent, made notes on a clipboard. The kid was good, really good. His voice was clear and controlled, hitting each note with precision. "That's Julian Harper," someone whispered next to Henry. "Vicky's son. He's been training since he was 4. Henry glanced over. A girl maybe 12 years old was standing there, wearing a sparkly dress that caught the stage lights. "He's going to win," the girl continued. "Everyone knows it. His mom basically runs this place." "We'll see," Henry said quietly. The girl looked him up and down, taking in his clean but worn jeans, his button-up shirt from Goodwill that didn't quite fit right. "You're that kid, the one from the video." Henry's stomach tightened. The video. He'd forgotten about that. After he'd registered, someone in the lobby had filmed the whole thing with the shoebox and the money. It had gone viral, 5 million views in 2 days. People were calling him Soul Boy and the kid who paid in quarters. "Yeah," he admitted. "That was cool, what you did." The girl smiled. "I'm Sarah." "Henry." "I know," she nodded toward the stage. "You're up after Julian. Good luck following that." Julian was walking onto the stage now. The house lights dimmed, and a spotlight hit him dead center. He looked confident, comfortable, like he'd been born to stand in that exact spot. Henry watched from the wings as Julian began to sing. It was a current pop song, something that had been on the radio all summer. Julian's voice was technically perfect. Every run was clean, every note was on pitch. His choreography was smooth, professional, the kind of performance that came from years of expensive lessons. The audience, mostly parents and competition staff, applauded politely when he finished. From her seat in the judges section, Vicky was beaming. She held up her scorecard, 8.8. The other judges gave similar scores, all except Cole Harrington, who sat at the end of the table, his expression unreadable. He held up an 8.5. "Next up," the announcer called, "we have contestant number 45, Henry Brooks." Henry felt his heart kick into overdrive. His palms were sweating. The tape around his wrists suddenly felt too tight. He walked onto the stage. The spotlight was blinding. He couldn't see the audience, could barely see the judges' table. All he could see was white light and the dark shapes of people watching him. "Contestant 45, Vicky's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. "Driffates, OS, dripping with false sweetness. A self-sponsored entry from the Labor District. No accompaniment requested." Henry heard the whispers that rippled through the crowd. He saw Julian watching from backstage, a smirk on his face. Henry walked to the microphone at center stage, his hand wrapped around it, and the metal was cold against his palm. He could see the words on his wrist, "Protect Mom." The stage manager gave him a nod. The auditorium went silent. Henry closed his eyes. He thought about his mom in that hospital bed, about the way her hand had felt in his. So thin, so fragile. He thought about that number, $68,000, and about the surgery she needed. He thought about the supply closet at the supermarket where he'd practiced, about the bathroom tiles that made his voice sound bigger than it was. He opened his mouth and began to sing. The song was, "A Change Is Gonna Come." Old Sam Cooke, older than Henry by decades. But he'd heard it on the radio once, and something about it had reached inside his chest and grabbed hold. His voice came out rough at first, nervous, but then something shifted. He stopped thinking about the judges and the audience and Julian Harper watching from backstage. He stopped thinking about being 10 years old and poor and scared. He just sang. His voice wasn't pretty like Julian's. It was raw, rough around the edges, but it had something that technical perfection couldn't teach. It had soul. It had pain. It had the weight of every hard thing Henry had ever lived through packed into every note. The words poured out of him like he'd lived them, like he'd been born tired, like he'd carried burdens too heavy for shoulders his size. When he hit the high notes, his face scrunched up, eyebrows drawn together, lips pulled tight, exactly the way Cole Harrington's face looked on his old album covers. In the judges section, Cole dropped his pen. It clattered on the table, and he didn't even notice. He was staring at Henry like he'd seen a ghost. Henry's eyes were closed, but if they'd been open, he would have seen people in the audience leaning forward in their seats. He would have seen Sarah backstage with her mouth hanging open. He would have seen Julian's smirk disappear. The song built to its climax. Henry's voice cracked on one of the high notes. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but somehow it made it more real, more honest. When the last note faded, there was silence. Then the audience erupted. People were standing up, actually standing. Henry opened his eyes, blinking in the spotlight, confused by the sound of applause thundering through the auditorium. At the judges' table, Cole Harrington had his face in his hands. His shoulders were shaking. Vicky was frozen, her scorecard still blank in front of her. The other judges were on their feet, clapping. Henry just stood there, gripping the microphone, trying to understand what had just happened. "Scores, please," the announcer called. The judges held up their cards one by one. 9.5, 9.7, 9.2. Then Vicky. Her hand was shaking slightly as she held up her card, 7.5. The audience booed. Someone shouted, "Are you kidding me?" Vicky's face flushed red, but she kept the card up. "Lack of technical fundamentals," she said into her microphone. "Raw talent isn't enough." Finally, Cole. He lowered his hands from his face. His eyes were red. He picked up his scorecard, and for a moment, he just looked at Henry, really looked at him. Then he held up his card. 10. The audience roared. Henry's average score, even with Vicky's 7.5, was the highest of the preliminary round. As he walked off stage, his legs felt like water. Julian was standing in the wings, and for a second, their eyes met. Julian opened his mouth like he was going to say something, then closed it. He just nodded once. Sarah grabbed Henry's arm as he passed. Oh my God, that was—" "I need some air," Henry managed to say. He pushed through the backstage door and into the alley behind the building. The night air was cool on his face. His hands were shaking. His whole body was shaking. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. Behind him, the door opened. Henry turned, expecting Sarah or maybe one of the other contestants. It was Cole Harrington. The music producer stood there in the doorway, the light from inside silhouetting him. He didn't say anything for a long moment, just looked at Henry with that same expression from before, like he was seeing something that hurt. "That was—" Cole's voice was rough. He cleared his throat. "Where did you learn to sing like that?" "I taught myself mostly. Watched videos at the library." "Videos?" Cole laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You taught yourself to sing like that from videos." Henry didn't know what to say to that, so he stayed quiet. Cole took a step forward. "When you were singing, when you hit those high notes, you do this thing with your eyebrows. You scrunch them together. Okay? I do the same thing." Cole's hands were in his pockets, and he looked uncomfortable. "I've always done it, since I was a kid." Henry felt something cold settle in his stomach. So? Cole stopped, shook his head. "Nothing. Never mind. You did good tonight. Real good." He turned to go back inside. "Mr. Harrington?" Cole stopped, looked back. "Why'd you give me a 10? Cole was quiet for a moment. "Because that wasn't a performance. That was the truth. And truth is always worth a 10. He disappeared back inside, leaving Henry alone in the alley with his shaking hands and the sound of applause still echoing in his ears. Henry's phone, the cheap prepaid one that his mom had gotten him for emergencies, started buzzing at 6 a.m. the next morning. He'd fallen asleep on his mattress, still wearing his competition clothes, too exhausted to change. The buzzing wouldn't stop. He grabbed the phone and squinted at the screen. Notifications, hundreds of them. His mom's phone was buzzing too from the kitchen, and he could hear it vibrating against the counter. Henry sat up and opened the first notification. It was a link to YouTube. The video was titled, "10-Year-Old Brings Judges to Tears. Soul Boy, Henry Brooks." The view count was at 2.3 million and climbing. "Oh no," Henry whispered. He clicked on the video. Someone had filmed his entire performance from the audience. Probably against the rules, but they'd done it anyway. The video quality was shaky, shot on a phone, but his voice came through clear. The comments section was exploding. "This kid has more soul in his pinky than most professional singers. I'm literally crying at my desk right now. That judge who gave him a 7.5 should be fired. Someone get this child a record deal immediately." Henry scrolled through more notifications. His performance had been shared on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. People were calling him Soul Boy. Clips of his singing were being remixed. Reaction videos were popping up every few minutes. His mom appeared in the doorway, her phone in her hand. "Baby, are you seeing this?" "Yeah, there's a—" Diane's voice was shaking. "Baby, there's a fundraising campaign. For my surgery. Someone started it last night." Henry's head snapped up. "What?" Diane showed him her phone. Sure enough, someone had created a GoFundMe with the title, "Help Soul Boy Henry Save His Mom." There was a picture of Henry from the competition, and below it, a description of his mom's cancer and the surgery she needed. The goal was set at $68,000. The current amount raised, $22,000. $22,000, Henry breathed. "In one night." His mom was crying, her hand over her mouth. "People are so good. People are so—" But Henry's mind was already calculating. 22,000 was incredible. Amazing. More money than he'd ever imagined having. But it still left 46,000 to go. And the surgery was in 19 days. Even if donations kept coming in at this rate, they wouldn't make it in time. He needed to win the competition. The prize money was still their best shot. By the time Henry got to school that Monday, everything had changed. Kids who'd never talked to him before were stopping him in the hallway. Teachers who'd barely noticed him were suddenly patting him on the back. Even Principal Morrison called him into the office, not to punish him, but to shake his hand and tell him how proud the school was. It felt wrong, all of it. These same kids had ignored him last week. These same teachers had looked right through him. Now they cared because he was famous on the internet. During lunch, Henry sat alone in the corner of the cafeteria like always. But this time, people kept coming over. "Yo, Henry, can I get a selfie?" "Henry, my mom is like obsessed with your video. Can you sing something right now?" Henry kept his head down, picking at his free lunch tray. He just wanted them to leave him alone. "Leave him alone!" Julian Harper's voice cut through the chatter. "Can't you see he's trying to eat?" The crowd dispersed slowly. Julian stood there with his own lunch tray, looking uncomfortable. "Can I sit?" Julian asked. Henry shrugged. "It's a free country." Julian sat down across from him. For a minute, neither of them said anything. "Your performance was really good," Julian finally said. "I mean it. You're really talented." "Thanks." "My mom is pissed." Julian gave a small laugh. "She's been on the phone all weekend, calling her lawyer friends, trying to find a way to—" He stopped, like he'd said too much. Henry looked up sharply. "A way to what?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything." But Henry could see it in Julian's face. Guilt, worry, something that looked like a warning. "What's your mom planning?" Henry asked quietly. Julian hesitated, then he leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Look, I'm not supposed to know this, okay? But I overheard her on the phone. She's looking into your background, trying to find anything she can use to disqualify you." Henry's stomach dropped. "Disqualify me? For what?" "I don't know, but knowing my mom, she'll find something. She always does." Julian stood up, picking up his tray. "Just be careful. Watch your back." He walked away, leaving Henry sitting there with a sick feeling spreading through his chest. The email came at 11 a.m. on the day of the finals. Henry was in his apartment, getting ready to leave for the competition. He'd borrowed a suit from the church, someone's donation that almost fit. His mom was braiding her headscarf in the bathroom mirror, trying to make herself look stronger than she felt. Henry's phone buzzed. An email from the competition office. Subject: Urgent. Competition eligibility issue. His hands were shaking as he opened it. "Dear Mr. Brooks, it has come to our attention that you may be in violation of the competition's eligibility requirements. Specifically, we have discovered a YouTube channel registered under the name Street Corner Singing that appears to belong to you. This channel contains numerous videos featuring copyrighted music performed without proper licensing. Per Section 12.3 of the competition rules, all contestants must be in good standing with copyright law. The use of copyrighted material without proper licensing is a violation of federal law and grounds for immediate disqualification. To maintain your eligibility, you must provide documentation of proper licensing for all copyrighted material performed on the aforementioned YouTube channel. This documentation must be submitted to the competition office no later than 1:00 p.m. today. Failure to provide adequate documentation will result in permanent disqualification from this and all future competitions hosted by the Community Arts Center. Sincerely, Vicky Harper Program Director. Henry read the email 3 times. Then he clicked on the link to the YouTube channel she'd referenced. It was his old channel, the one he'd started when he was 8 years old, before he knew anything about copyright or licensing or any of it. Just videos of him singing covers of songs he liked, filmed on his mom's phone. He'd stopped posting to it over a year ago, had basically forgotten it existed. There were maybe 40 videos total, all covers of popular songs. "Mom!" Henry's voice came out strangled. "Mom, we have a problem." Diane came out of the bathroom. "What is it?" Henry showed her the email. He watched the color drain from her face as she read it. "Licensing documentation?" Diane's voice was shaking. "Baby, we can't afford." "I know." Getting proper licensing for 40 songs would cost thousands of dollars, money they absolutely didn't have, and even if they did, there was no way to get it processed and documented by 1 p.m. It was 11:15 now. Henry looked at the words on his wrists. Protect Mom. The tape was dirty now, peeling at the edges, but the message was still there. "She can't do this," Henry said. His hands were clenched into fists. "She can't just—" But she could. And she had. Diane pulled Henry into a hug. It's okay, baby. It's okay. It's not okay. Henry pulled away. His eyes were burning. That prize money, Mom, we need it. You need it. We'll figure something out. The fundraiser is at $22,000. That's not even half. Henry's voice was rising. He could feel panic clawing at his throat. We have 19 days. 19 days, and if we don't have the money, they won't do the surgery, and you'll... He couldn't finish the sentence. Diane cupped his face in her hands. Henry James Brooks, you listen to me. You have already done more than any child should ever have to do. You've worked yourself to the bone for a year. You stood up there and sang your heart out. You've been so brave, baby, so brave. But it wasn't enough. Henry's voice broke. I wasn't enough. Yes, you were. Yes, you are. Diane's own tears were falling now. And I'm not going to let you blame yourself for this. You hear me? This is not your fault. Henry's phone buzzed again. Another email. He looked down at it. It was from Cole Harrington. Subject: Meet me at the center. Now. Henry showed it to his mom. Go, she said. Go see what he wants. Henry grabbed his jacket, the suit jacket from the church that was too big in the shoulders, and ran. Henry burst through the doors of the Community Arts Center at 11:47 a.m. He was out of breath, his shirt soaked with sweat from running the whole way. The lobby was empty except for Cole Harrington, who was pacing back and forth in front of the registration desk like a caged animal. When he saw Henry, he stopped. Did you get the email? Cole asked. Yeah. Okay, good. Come with me. Cole didn't wait for an answer. He just headed toward the administrative offices, and Henry followed. They walked down a hallway Henry had never been in before, past closed doors with names like Board of Directors and Financial Office. At the end of the hall was Vicky Harper's office. Cole didn't knock. He just opened the door and walked in. Vicky was sitting at her desk on the phone. When she saw them, her expression shifted from surprise to annoyance to something that looked almost like fear. I'll call you back, she said into the phone, and hung up. Vicky. Cole's voice was cold. We need to talk. Mr. Harrington, this is highly inappropriate. Inappropriate? Cole laughed, but there was no humor in it. You want to talk about inappropriate? Let's talk about how you're using copyright law to exclude a 10-year-old child from a competition. Vicky straightened in her chair. I'm simply enforcing the rules that were bullshit. The word came out flat and hard. You waited until the morning of the finals to send that email. You waited until there was no possible way he could comply. That's not enforcing rules. That's sabotage. Mr. Harrington, I understand you have a soft spot for this particular contestant, but rules are rules. All participants must be in compliance with... Cole slammed a folder down on her desk. The sound made both Vicky and Henry jump. You want to talk about copyright compliance? Cole flipped open the folder. Let's talk about your son's submission video, the one he used for his application, the one where he's performing choreography to a remix of a Drake song. Cole pulled out a printed screenshot. That remix, unlicensed. The person who made it doesn't have rights to Drake's master recordings, which means Julian performed copyrighted material without proper licensing, which means, by your own standards, he should be disqualified too. Vicky's face went white, then red. That's completely different. How? Explain to me how that's different. Cole leaned forward, his hands flat on her desk. Actually, let me save you the trouble. It's not different. The only difference is that Julian is your son and Henry isn't. You're oversimplifying. Am I? Cole pulled out another paper, because I also found out something interesting. 3 years ago, a contestant filed a complaint about discriminatory treatment. Said you'd made comments about their family's economic status. Said you'd tried to discourage them from competing. The board buried it, swept it under the rug because you bring in donors. He looked at her hard. How many other kids have you done this to, Vicky? Vicky stood up. Her hands were shaking. Get out of my office. No. I said get out. I'm not going anywhere. Cole crossed his arms. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to withdraw that email. You're going to allow Henry to compete in the finals tonight. And you're going to do it in the next 5 minutes. Or what? Vicky's voice was sharp, defensive. You'll go to the board. Please. Half of them are my personal friends. I don't need the board. Cole's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. I need my lawyer. and my publicist, and the media contacts I've built over 20 years in this industry." He paused. "You know what makes a great news story, Vicky? Wealthy program director uses legal technicalities to exclude poor black child from talent competition. Really plays well on social media, especially now when everyone already loves Henry and thinks you're the villain." Vicky's mouth opened, then closed. "And then there's the civil suit," Cole continued. "Discrimination based on economic status, selective enforcement of rules. I've got enough evidence just from this morning to make your life very, very difficult. And trust me, my lawyers are better than your lawyers." "You're threatening me." "No, I'm explaining consequences." Cole straightened up. "You made this personal when you went after a child. So now it's personal. And you're going to lose." Henry stood by the door watching this all unfold. He'd never seen an adult fight for him like this. Never seen someone with power actually use it to protect him instead of push him down. Vicky sat back down. She was trying to maintain composure, but Henry could see her hands trembling as she pulled up something on her computer. "The rules clearly state," she started. "The rules also have a fair use provision," Cole interrupted, "which covers educational and non-commercial use of copyrighted material." Henry's YouTube channel was non-monetized. He was a child learning to sing. That's textbook fair use. Any first-year law student could argue that. Vicky's jaw clenched. "Fine. Let's say, hypothetically, I withdraw the disqualification. What's to stop me from simply scoring him low in the finals? I'm a judge. That's my right." "Absolutely nothing," Cole agreed. "Score him however you want, but do it fairly. Let him compete. Let him sing. Then you can judge him on his actual performance, not on his economic background or your personal vendetta." The office was silent, except for the hum of Vicky's computer. Henry could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Finally, Vicky clicked her mouse a few times. "The disqualification notice has been withdrawn. Henry Brooks is reinstated as a finalist." She looked up at Cole with pure hatred in her eyes. "But this conversation isn't over." "Yes, it is." Cole turned and put his hand on Henry's shoulder, steering him toward the door. "Come on, kid. You've got a competition to win." They left Vicky sitting at her desk, her hands still shaking with barely contained rage. In the hallway, Henry stopped and looked up at Cole. "Why'd you do that?" Cole was quiet for a moment. His hand was still on Henry's shoulder, and Henry could feel it trembling slightly. "Because somebody should have done it for me," Cole said quietly. "A long time ago." Before Henry could ask what that meant, Cole's phone rang. He pulled it out, looked at the screen, and his expression changed to something Henry couldn't read. "I have to take this," Cole said. "But Henry, go home, rest, eat something. Be back here at 5:30 for sound check. And don't let what happened this morning get in your head. You belong on that stage tonight. You understand me?" Henry nodded. Cole answered his phone and walked away, his voice echoing down the hallway. "Yeah, I'm here. What did you find out?" Henry stood there for a moment, alone in the empty hallway. He looked down at his wrists. The tape was barely hanging on now, but he could still make out the words, "Protect Mom." He'd come so close to losing everything, to having it all ripped away because some rich woman didn't think he belonged, but he was still in it. He still had a chance. Henry walked out of the community arts center and into the midday sun. His hands weren't shaking anymore. He had 5 hours until the finals. 5 hours to prepare for the most important performance of his life. He started walking home, and with each step, he felt a little bit stronger. The auditorium was packed, every seat filled, people standing in the back, news cameras set up in the rear, real news cameras from actual TV stations. The video of Henry's preliminary round had gone so viral that local media was covering the finals like it was a sporting event. Backstage was chaos, contestants running through last-minute vocal warm-ups, parents adjusting costumes, stage crew shouting directions. Henry stood in the corner, away from it all. He was wearing the suit from the church. Someone had taken it to a tailor that afternoon and adjusted it for free after hearing his story. It actually fit now, made him look older, more serious. His mom was with him. She'd insisted on coming despite how weak she felt. She was sitting in a folding chair, the headscarf wrapped carefully around her head, but she was smiling, actually smiling. "You look so handsome, baby," she said, reaching up to straighten his collar. "Like a little man." "I feel like I'm gonna throw up." Diane laughed softly. "That's normal." "That means you care." Henry looked around the backstage area. He could see Julian warming up with his vocal coach. A woman in expensive yoga clothes who kept checking her Apple Watch. Sarah was there too, stretching in her sparkly dress. Other kids he recognized from the preliminaries. And then he saw them. A group of people coming through the backstage door who didn't look like they belonged at a talent competition. It was Marcus from the barbershop, where Henry sometimes swept up for $5, and Teresa, the nurse from his mom's hospital floor, and Big Mike, who ran the corner store, and at least a dozen other people from their neighborhood, people who'd watched Henry grow up, who'd given him odd jobs, who'd known him before he was Soul Boy. They were all wearing matching t-shirts, white shirts with black letters, Henry's team. "Surprise!" Marcus called out, grinning. "You think we'd miss this?" Henry felt his throat get tight. His mom stood up from her chair and walked over to them, and they surrounded her with hugs and words of encouragement. "We got a whole cheering section out there," Teresa said. "Front row, baby. We're gonna be so loud." Big Mike clapped Henry on the shoulder. "You got this, little man. Show 'em what real talent looks like." The stage manager called for attention. 5 minutes to showtime. Finalists, please line up in performance order." The backstage area shifted, people moving into position, parents giving last kisses and pep talks, contestants bouncing on their toes, shaking out their nerves. Henry was performing 5th out of 8 finalists. Julian was performing 3rd. The lights in the auditorium dimmed. The crowd noise swelled, then quieted. The competition had begun. Henry watched the first 2 performances from the wings. Both were good, really good. A 12-year-old girl who sang opera. A 13-year-old boy who did this incredible jazz number with a full band accompaniment. Then it was Julian's turn. Julian walked onto the stage like he owned it. No nervousness, no hesitation. He'd been preparing for this his entire life. The music started, a soulful ballad, the kind that showed off range and control. Julian's voice filled the auditorium, pure and precise. Every note exactly where it needed to be. Every run executed perfectly. It was a masterclass in technical singing. The audience applauded when he finished. Strong applause. Appreciative, but not the kind of applause that comes from deep in the gut. Not the kind that makes people jump to their feet. Julian walked off stage past Henry. Their eyes met. "Good luck," Julian said quietly, and Henry could tell he meant it. "Thanks." The 4th performer went on. Another strong showing. The judges were giving out scores in the high 8s, low 9s. This was a stacked competition. Then the stage manager touched Henry's shoulder. "You're up, kid." Henry took a breath. His mom squeezed his hand. "Remember," she whispered, "sing it like you mean it. That's all that matters." Henry walked onto the stage. The spotlight hit him. En fait, and for a second, he was blind. Then his eyes adjusted, and he could see everything. The packed auditorium, the news cameras, the judge's table where Vicky sat with her arms crossed, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. Cole at the end of the table, sitting forward with his hands clasped. And in the front row, Henry's team, Marcus and Teresa and Big Mike and all the others wearing their white shirts grinning up at him. The announcer introduced him. Contestant number 45, Henry Brooks, performing an original arrangement. The stage went quiet. Henry stepped up to the microphone. No backing track this time, no instruments, just him and his voice and the words he needed to say. He looked at the words on his wrists one more time, "Protect Mom." Then he began to sing. The song was Stand Up, an old gospel tune that his mom used to sing when she still had the strength. But Henry had changed it, made it his own, made it about fighting, about refusing to stay down, about being small but standing tall anyway. His voice came out strong from the first note. No nervousness this time, no hesitation. This wasn't a performance. This was a message. He sang about being counted out before you even start, about people looking at you and deciding you're not good enough based on your zip code or your clothes or the color of your skin, about being knocked down and getting back up again and again and again. Henry moved as he sang, not choreographed, nothing like Julian's polished routines, but real, raw. He walked across the stage, commanding it. He pointed at the audience when he sang about standing tall. He looked directly at Vicky when he sang about people trying to tear you down. His voice cracked on one of the high notes. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but it made the song more honest, more real. The audience was dead silent, completely transfixed. Henry could see his mom in the wings, tears streaming down her face. He could see Cole at the judges' table, both hands covering his mouth. He could see people in the crowd leaning forward, hanging on every word. The song built to its climax. Henry's voice filled every corner of the auditorium, reaching up to the ceiling, pouring out everything he had. All the fear, all the anger, all the love for his mom, all the desperation and hope and fight that had been building inside him for a year. The final note rang out, then faded into silence. For 3 full seconds, nobody moved. Then the auditorium exploded. People were on their feet before Henry even lowered the microphone. The sound of applause was like a physical force. People were crying, shouting. Marcus and Big Mike were hugging each other. Teresa had her hands over her heart. Even some of the news cameras were shaking. The camera operators were crying too hard to hold them steady. Henry stood there, blinking in the spotlight, trying to process what was happening. At the judges' table, Cole had his face in his hands. His shoulders were shaking with sobs. The other judges were standing, applauding. Even Julian, watching from backstage, was clapping. His mom was tugging on his arm, trying to get him to stop, but he kept clapping anyway. The only person not applauding was Vicky. She sat with her arms crossed, her expression frozen. The announcer had to wait almost 2 full minutes for the noise to die down, enough to ask for scores. One by one, the judges held up their cards. 9.8, 9.9, 9.7. Then Vicky. She held up her card with a tight smile. 8.9. The audience booed. Someone threw a program. The stage manager had to step forward and calm everyone down. Finally, Cole. He wiped his eyes, picked up his scorecard, and held it up. The place went wild again. Henry's average score, even with Vicky's attempt to drag it down, was the highest of the night. By a lot. But there were still 3 more contestants to go. Henry barely remembers what happened next. The last 3 performances were good, maybe great, but nothing could follow what he'd just done. The audience was still buzzing. People were still wiping their eyes. When the final contestant finished and the judges tallied all the scores, the announcer took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have our results." The auditorium went silent. In 3rd place with an average score of 9.2, Sarah Chen. Applause. Sarah walked on stage beaming, accepting her medal. In 2nd place with an average score of 9.3, Julian Harper. More applause. Julian walked out, shook hands with the judges. He was smiling, but Henry could see disappointment in his eyes. Vicky looked like she wanted to set something on fire. And in 1st place, with an average score of 9.66, Henry Brooks. The auditorium erupted, again, louder than before. Henry's team rushed the stage. Big Mike lifted him up on his shoulders. Confetti cannons went off. Lights flashed. Someone handed Henry an oversized check, made out for $75,000. Henry stared at the numbers. $75,000. More than enough for his mom's surgery. More than enough for the bills. More than enough to stop counting quarters and worrying about every dollar. His mom was there suddenly, pulling him down from Big Mike's shoulders, hugging him so tight he couldn't breathe. "You did it," she kept saying. "Baby, you did it." Henry hugged her back. The check was pressed between them, crinkling. "We did it, Mom," he said into her shoulder. "We're gonna be okay." And for the first time in a year, he actually believed it. The celebration lasted about an hour. Photos with the oversized check. Interviews with local news stations. People crowding around wanting selfies and autographs. Henry smiled through all of it, but exhaustion was starting to creep in around the edges. He just wanted to go home. Finally, around 9 p.m., the crowd started to thin. Marcus and the others from the neighborhood said their goodbyes, promising to check in tomorrow. The news crews packed up their equipment. The other contestants and their families filtered out. Henry and his mom were walking toward the exit when a voice called out behind them. "Henry, wait!" They both turned. Cole Harrington was standing near the stage, his hands in his pockets. He looked nervous, actually nervous. "Can I?" Cole glanced at Diane. "Can I talk to you both for a minute? Please." Diane's hand tightened on Henry's shoulder. "We're pretty tired, Mr. Harrington." I know, and I'm sorry, but this is..." Cole took a breath. "This is important." There was something in his voice, something urgent and scared and desperate all at once. Henry recognized that tone. He'd heard it in his own voice plenty of times over the past year. 5 minutes, Diane said quietly. They followed Cole to a side room, some kind of storage area with folding chairs stacked against the walls. Cole closed the door behind them and stood there for a moment, like he was trying to figure out where to start. "I need to tell you something," he finally said. "Something I should have told you 11 years ago." Diane went very still. Henry could feel the tension suddenly radiating off his mom. "Cole, don't!" Diane's voice was warning. "Diane, please, let me. You don't have the right." "I know I don't." Cole's voice cracked. "I know I don't have any rights here, but he deserves to know. He deserves to know who his father is." The words hung in the air like smoke. Henry looked between them. His mom's face had gone pale. Cole looked like he might collapse. "What?" Henry's voice came out small. Cole knelt down, getting on Henry's level. His eyes, those dark eyes that Henry had noticed looked familiar, were red and wet. "Henry," Cole said quietly, "I'm your father." For a second, Henry's brain just stopped, like someone had unplugged it. The words didn't make sense, couldn't make sense. "No," Henry said automatically. "No, my dad is... My mom said he was a singer," Cole finished. "She told you he was a singer who left before you were born." "That's true. That was me." Henry looked at his mom. She was crying silently, her hand over her mouth. "Mom," Henry's voice was shaking. "Mom, is this true?" Diane nodded. She couldn't seem to speak. Henry turned back to Cole, and suddenly he could see it. The resemblance he'd noticed but hadn't understood, the way they both scrunched their eyebrows when singing high notes, the shape of their eyes, the way they both tilted their heads slightly to the left when listening to music. Henry couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm so sorry," Cole said, and his voice broke completely. "I'm so sorry, Henry. I was 23 years old and stupid and scared, and I thought having a kid would ruin my career. I thought it would trap me. So I left. I left your mom when she needed me most. I left you before you were even born." Cole was crying now, actually crying. "And I told myself I was doing the right thing, that you'd be better off without me, that I'd just mess you up anyway. But I was wrong. I was so wrong." Henry's hands were clenched into fists. His whole body was shaking. "You left us." "Yes." "You left my mom when she was pregnant." "Yes." "You didn't." Henry's voice was rising. "You didn't even try. You didn't even want to know me." "Henry, no." Henry stepped back. "You don't get to show up now. You don't get to be my dad now that I won something, now that I'm on TV and people know my name." "That's not why." "Then why?" Henry was shouting now. "Why now? Why not when we were getting evicted? Why not when Mom got sick? Why not when I was 8 years old selling lemonade to buy groceries?" Cole flinched like he'd been hit. "I didn't know. I swear to God, Henry, I didn't know." "You could have known. You could have checked. You could have cared." Henry's face was wet with tears he didn't remember starting to cry. "But you didn't, because we weren't important enough. You are important. Don't." Henry's voice went cold. "Don't tell me I'm important now. Don't tell me you care now, because it's too late." Cole pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folded piece of paper. He held it out to Henry with shaking hands. "This is a receipt," Cole said quietly. "From the hospital. I paid your mom's surgery bill this morning. All of it. $68,000. The surgery is scheduled for next week, and it's completely covered. The post-op care, too. Everything." Henry stared at the paper but didn't take it. "The prize money," Cole continued, "you can keep that. Use it for whatever you want. College fund, new apartment, whatever. But you don't need it for the surgery anymore. That's taken care of." "Why?" Henry's voice was barely a whisper. "Because..." Cole's breath hitched. "Because I can't fix the past 11 years. I can't go back and be there when you needed me. But I can do this. I can make sure you don't lose your mom. I can make sure you don't have to carry that weight anymore." He set the paper on a folding chair when Henry still wouldn't take it. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," Cole said. "I don't deserve it. I'm not asking to be your dad. I know I'm not your dad. I'm just asking you to let me help. Please." Henry looked at his mom. She was still crying, arms wrapped around herself. He looked at Cole, this stranger who was apparently his father, this famous music producer who'd left them to chase his dreams, who'd built a whole life and career while Henry was growing up in poverty, wearing secondhand clothes, counting quarters in a shoebox. Henry thought about what it would mean to accept this, to let Cole in, to have a father. Then he thought about all the nights he'd lain awake wondering why his dad didn't want him, all the times he'd seen other kids with their fathers and felt that hollow ache in his chest, all the years of his mom working herself sick to provide for them alone. "You paid for the surgery," Henry said slowly. "Yes." "Thank you for that. That's—" Henry's voice cracked. "That's really good. That'll save my mom's life." Cole's face lit up with hope. "But that doesn't make you my dad." Henry's words came out hard, final. "You're Cole Harrington. You're a music producer. You're someone who judged my performance. But you're not my dad. My dad wouldn't have left." The hope in Cole's face shattered. "Henry," Diane started. "No, Mom, I'm sorry, but no." And Henry looked at Cole directly. "Thank you for paying for the surgery. Really, thank you. But I don't need a father now. I've been fine without one for 10 years. I'll be fine for 10 more. He walked to the door, pulled it open. "Henry, please." Cole's voice was desperate. Henry stopped in the doorway, didn't turn around. "If you really want to help," Henry said quietly, "then just don't make this harder. Don't try to be something you're not. Just let us go." He walked out, his mom following a moment later. Behind them, they could hear Cole sobbing, raw, broken sounds that echoed in the empty storage room. Henry didn't look back. The parking lot was mostly empty now, just a few cars scattered under the streetlights. Henry and his mom walked in silence toward the bus stop, their footsteps echoing off the pavement. Henry was carrying the oversized check. It was awkward and didn't fold, so he had to carry it flat like a surfboard. The receipt Cole had given them was in his mom's purse, proof that the surgery was paid for, proof that, at least medically, they were going to be okay. But Henry didn't feel okay. His chest felt tight. His eyes burned. His hands were shaking again, and he shoved them in his pockets to hide it. "Baby," Diane said softly, "do you want to talk about it?" "No." They kept walking. "He really did pay for everything," Diane continued. "The hospital called me this afternoon to confirm. The surgery, the post-op care, the medications. It's all covered." "I know." "That's a good thing, Henry. That's a really good thing." "I know, Mom." "He's trying." "I said I don't want to talk about it." Henry's voice came out sharper than he meant. He took a breath. "Sorry, I can't right now." Diane nodded and went quiet. They reached the bus stop. The next bus wasn't due for another 15 minutes. They sat on the bench, the oversized check propped between them. Henry looked at the numbers again. 75,000. Money that was supposed to save his mom. Money he'd worked a year to be able to compete for. Money that didn't matter anymore because Cole Harrington had written a bigger check. Part of Henry was relieved, grateful. The surgery was happening. His mom would live. But another part, a bigger part, felt angry, cheated, almost, like his win had been diminished somehow, like everything he'd done had been for nothing because Cole had just swooped in at the end and fixed it with his credit card. "You know what the worst part is," Henry said quietly. "What, baby?" "I wanted to save you. I wanted to be the one who fixed it. I wanted to—" His voice cracked. "I wanted to be enough." Diane pulled him into a hug. "Oh, Henry, baby, you are enough. You've always been enough. But I didn't save you. He did." "No." Diane pulled back and held his face in her hands. "You saved me long before tonight. Every morning you got up early to work. Every time you practiced until your voice was raw. Every time you took care of me when you should have been outside playing. You saved me with your love, baby, with your courage. Cole he just wrote a check. But you gave me everything." Henry wiped his eyes on his sleeve. "I don't want him to be my dad." "I know. I mean it. I don't care that he paid for the surgery. I don't care that we have the same eyes or whatever. He left us." "Yes, he did. So why do I feel bad?" Henry looked at his mom. "Why do I feel bad for telling him to go away?" Diane sighed. "Because you're a good person. Because even when someone hurts you, it's hard to hurt them back. That's not weakness, baby. That's strength." Headlights swept across them, but it wasn't the bus. It was a car, a nice car. It pulled into the parking lot and stopped a few feet away. Cole got out. "I'll leave if you want me to," he called out. "I will. I needed to say one more thing." Henry stood up. "We said everything." "I know what I am to you," Cole interrupted. "I know I'm not your dad. I know I don't deserve to be. But maybe I could be something else. He walked closer, stopping a respectful distance away. I can't change the past, Cole said, but I can be here now. Not as your father. I know I lost that right, but maybe as, I don't know, someone who wants to help, someone who wants to support your career, be your manager, your mentor, whatever you need. I don't need anything from you. I know, but maybe I need something from you. Cole's voice was quiet. Maybe I need the chance to do something right, to be someone you can count on, even if it's not as a father. Henry stared at him, at this stranger who was his biological father but had never been his dad. This man who'd built a successful career while Henry had grown up poor, who'd written a check that saved his mom's life but couldn't erase 11 years of absence. "What do you want from me?" Henry asked. "Nothing. I want to give you something. A chance. An opportunity." Cole took a breath. "I work with a lot of artists, young artists. I could help you develop your talent, really develop it. Voice coaching, stage presence, connecting you with the right people. Not because you're my son, because you're talented, because what you did on that stage tonight was extraordinary. I don't—" "Think about it," Cole said. "Don't answer now. Just think about it. I'm giving you my number." He pulled out a business card and held it out. Henry didn't move. Cole set the card on the bench next to Diane. "If you ever want my help, with music, with anything, call. If you don't, that's okay too. Either way, the surgery is paid for. Either way, I'm not going anywhere. I'll be here in this city if you ever change your mind." He started to walk back to his car. "Wait," Henry heard himself say. Cole turned. Henry walked up to him, close enough to see the hope flicker in Cole's eyes again. "Thank you," Henry said, "for saving my mom." "You don't have to." "I'm not done." Henry held out his hand. "Thank you for that, really. But you're not my dad. You're not my father. You're Cole, just Cole. And if—" Henry took a breath. "If I ever decide I want your help with music, it'll be because you're a professional, not because you're my dad. Do you understand?" Cole looked at Henry's outstretched hand. His lips trembled. "I understand." "Good." Cole took Henry's hand and shook it, a firm, formal handshake, like two professionals meeting, like two men, not like father and son. "Thank you, Henry," Cole said, his voice thick, "for giving me even this much." Henry nodded once, then pulled his hand back and returned to the bus stop. Cole stood there for a moment, looking like he wanted to say more. Then he got in his car and drove away. Diane pulled Henry close. "That was very grown-up of you." "I don't feel grown up. I feel tired." "I know, baby." The bus finally arrived. They climbed on, Henry struggling with the oversized check. The driver recognized him. "Hey, you're that kid from the news," and didn't make them pay. As the bus pulled away from the community arts center, Henry looked back. The building was dark now, all the lights off. The parking lot empty. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. They'd schedule his mom's surgery, figure out what to do with the prize money. Maybe Henry would think about Cole's offer. But tonight, he was just tired. He leaned against his mom's shoulder and closed his eyes. "We did it," Diane whispered, kissing the top of his head. "Yeah," Henry said. "We did." And for the first time in a year, the weight on his shoulders felt just a little bit lighter. 1 year later, the arena was massive. 20,000 seats, all filled. Stage lights that could be seen from space. A sound system that made the community arts center look like someone's basement. Henry stood backstage, looking through a gap in the curtain at the crowd. His hands should have been shaking. A year ago, they would have been. But now he was calm. "5 minutes, Henry," the stage manager said, passing by with a headset and a clipboard. Henry nodded. He was wearing a new suit, actually his this time, tailored to fit. His mom had taken him shopping last month with some of the prize money. "You need to look professional," she'd insisted. "You're a real artist now." A real artist. Henry still wasn't used to that phrase. The past year had been a whirlwind. After the competition, 3 record labels had reached out wanting to sign him. Talk shows had called. Concert venues had offered bookings. It had been overwhelming. That's when Henry had made the call. Cole's business card had sat on their kitchen counter for 2 weeks before Henry finally picked up the phone. The conversation had been awkward, formal. Henry had been clear about the boundaries. "I need a manager, someone who knows the industry. Are you interested?" Cole had said yes before Henry even finished the question. Their relationship was complicated. Cole wasn't Henry's dad. Henry still wouldn't use that word. But he was good at his job. He'd negotiated a fair record deal that gave Henry creative control. He'd gotten Henry into voice coaching sessions with professionals. He'd protected Henry from the more predatory elements of the music industry. And slowly, carefully, they'd become something like friends. "How you feeling?" Cole's voice came from behind him. Henry turned. Cole was wearing his usual uniform, nice jeans and a leather jacket. His hair was graying at the temples now, and he looked tired, but he was smiling. "Good," Henry said. "Ready. Your mom's in the VIP box with your aunt. She looks great, by the way. Really healthy." The surgery had been successful. The cancer was gone. Really gone. Diane had finished her treatment 6 months ago and had been declared in remission. She'd gained back the weight she'd lost. Her hair had grown back, thick and beautiful. She was working again, but not at the supermarket. She was managing Henry's schedule now, handling his bookings and appearances. They'd moved out of the cramped apartment into a small house with a yard. Nothing fancy. Henry had insisted on that. "We don't need a mansion," he'd said. "Just something nice." "Julian's here tonight," Cole said. "He wanted me to tell you good luck." Henry smiled. Julian had become an actual friend. After the competition, they'd bonded over their shared experiences. Julian had even apologized for his mom's behavior. "She's working on herself," he'd said diplomatically. Vicky had been quietly removed from her position at the Community Arts Center after an investigation into her treatment of contestants. Julian seemed happier now, less pressure. "Tell him thanks," Henry said. "You should tell him yourself. He's in the green room." Henry found Julian sitting on a couch, scrolling through his phone. When he saw Henry, he jumped up. "Dude, this place is insane," Julian said. 20,000 people? "I know. Are you nervous?" "Not really." "Should I be?" Julian laughed. "Probably. I'd be terrified." They talked for a few minutes. Easy conversation about school and music and normal kid stuff. It felt good. Normal. The stage manager's voice came over the intercom. "Henry Brooks to stage right. 2 minutes." Julian gave him a quick hug. "Kill it out there, man." Henry made his way to the stage entrance. His mom was waiting there, having come down from the VIP box. She hugged him tight. "I'm so proud of you, baby," she said. "Every single day, I'm proud of you." "Love you, Mom." "Love you, too." Cole was there, too. He held out his fist and Henry bumped it. Their standard pre-show ritual. "Remember," Cole said, "you're not performing for them. You're performing for you." Henry nodded. The lights dimmed in the arena. The crowd's noise swelled to a roar. The announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Henry Brooks." Henry walked out. The lights hit him like a physical force. The noise was deafening. He could see people on their feet, screaming, holding signs with his name. He walked to center stage and took the microphone. The arena went silent. Henry looked out at 20 innocent faces. He thought about where he'd been a year ago, standing at that registration desk, watching his form drop into a puddle, counting quarters from a shoebox, watching his mom grow weaker every day. He thought about everything that had happened since. The viral video, the competition, meeting Cole, the surgery, the recovery. He looked at his wrist. He wasn't wearing the athletic tape anymore. Didn't need to. But he could still remember what he'd written there. Protect Mom. He'd done it. He'd protected her. He'd won. But more than that, he'd survived. They'd survived. Henry brought the microphone to his lips and began to sing. The song was new, one he'd written himself with help from Cole. It was about rising up, about being knocked down and standing back up, about being small but having a big voice. It was about being 10 years old and fighting like hell for the people you love. His voice filled the arena, reaching every corner, every seat. People were singing along, crying, dancing. Henry closed his eyes and let the music take him. When he opened them again, he saw his mom in the VIP box. She was on her feet, hands over her heart, tears streaming down her face. Next to her, Cole was watching. And maybe, just maybe, Henry could see something like pride in his eyes. Not the pride of a father exactly, but the pride of someone who'd helped, who'd shown up when it mattered. The song built to its climax. Henry's voice soared up, 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 higher than he'd ever sung before. Strong and sure and unbreakable. The final note rang out. 20,000 people erupted. Henry stood there, breathing hard, smiling for real. He waved to the crowd, but his eyes found his mom first. Then Cole. Then Julian somewhere in the audience. All the people who'd helped him get here. All the people who'd believed in him. The lights dimmed as he walked off stage. His mom was waiting in the wings, and she grabbed him in a crushing hug. "You did so good, baby. So good." Cole was there too. For a second, they just looked at each other. Then Cole held out his hand. Henry shook it, firm and professional. "Thank you," Henry said, "for everything." "No," Cole said quietly. "Thank you for giving me the chance to be part of this, even if it's just Cole," Henry finished. Cole smiled. Just Cole. And somehow, that was enough. 6 months later, Henry walked through the doors of the Community Arts Center for the first time since the finals. The lobby looked the same. Same fluorescent lights, same red carpet, same registration desk. But everything felt different now. "You okay?" his mom asked, touching his shoulder. "Yeah, just weird being back." They were here for the new talent competition, the first one since Henry's win. Cole had convinced Henry to come as a guest speaker to talk to the new contestants about his journey. "It'll be good for them to hear your story," Cole had said. "Show them that success doesn't always come from privilege." The lobby was filled with kids and parents. Registration was happening at the same desk where Vicky Harper had once sat, but Vicky was gone now. A new program director had been hired, a woman named Michelle Torres, who actually seemed to care about giving all kids a fair shot. Michelle saw Henry and waved. "Henry, thank you so much for coming." "No problem." "The kids are so excited to meet you. We've got about 50 contestants this year, biggest turnout we've ever had. I think your story inspired a lot of families to give this a try." Henry looked around the lobby. He saw kids who looked like him, kids with worn-out shoes and clothes that didn't quite fit, kids who probably counted every dollar, kids who were carrying dreams bigger than their circumstances. But he also saw kids like Julian had been, well-dressed, well-trained, clearly from families with resources. Everyone mixed together, no separation, no judgment. "Things have changed here," Henry said. "That's thanks to you," Michelle said. "After everything that happened, the board did a complete overhaul of our policies. No more discrimination, no more favoritism. Every kid gets a fair shot now." A boy who looked about 9 years old approached Henry shyly. "Excuse me, are you Henry Brooks?" "Yeah, that's me." The boy's eyes went wide. "I watched your videos like 100 times. You're the reason I'm competing today." "What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Williams." Henry smiled. "Good to meet you, Marcus. You nervous?" "Super nervous. My mom says I shouldn't be, but—" Marcus looked down at his shoes. "I don't have fancy clothes or anything, and I've never had voice lessons." Henry knelt down so he was eye level with Marcus. "You know what the most important thing is?" "What?" "Why you're doing this. If you're doing it for the right reasons, because you love singing, because you have something to say, then none of the other stuff matters. The clothes, the lessons, none of it." Henry tapped Marcus's chest. "It's all about what's in here." Marcus nodded, looking more confident. "And hey," Henry added, "I didn't have voice lessons either. Not before the competition anyway. I just had a reason to sing. Find your reason, and you'll be fine." After Marcus walked away, Henry noticed someone else watching from across the lobby. Julian was there with his mom. When their eyes met, Julian waved. Henry walked over. "Hey," Julian said. "Didn't expect to see you here. Didn't expect you to be here either. You competing again?" "Nah, just here to support some of the younger kids. I've been doing mentorship stuff with Michelle's program." Julian glanced at his mom. "We're trying to give back, I guess." Vicky stood there looking uncomfortable. She'd aged in the past year, more gray in her hair, lines around her eyes. When she looked at Henry, there was something like shame in her expression. "Henry," she said quietly, "can I talk to you for a minute?" Henry looked at his mom, who nodded. They stepped aside, away from the crowd. "I owe you an apology," Vicky said. "A real one. What I did, the way I treated you, it was wrong. It was cruel. I was so focused on Julian winning that I forgot what this program was supposed to be about. Giving kids opportunities, not taking them away." Henry didn't say anything. I lost my job because of my behavior, Vicky continued, and I deserve to lose it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I see now what I did. And I'm sorry. Henry took a breath. You made everything harder. You made me doubt myself when I was already struggling. I know. But you also made me stronger. You made me fight harder, so I guess. I don't know. I'm not going to say it's okay because it wasn't. But I'm not angry anymore. Vicky's eyes filled with tears. Thank you for that. They rejoined the group. Julian gave Henry a look that said thank you, without words. Michelle called for everyone's attention. Okay, folks, let's move into the auditorium. Henry's going to say a few words to our contestants before we start the preliminaries. The crowd filed into the auditorium. Henry walked backstage, his mom and Cole following. The stage looked exactly the same as it had a year and a half ago. Same lights, same microphone. But Henry wasn't scared this time. He walked out onto the stage. The contestants were sitting in the first few rows, looking up at him with wide eyes. Some were nervous. Some were confident. All of them were hoping. Hey, everyone, Henry said into the microphone. I'm Henry. Most of you probably know my story, but just in case, I was sitting where you are about a year and a half ago. I was 10 years old, broke, and scared out of my mind. A few kids laughed. I didn't have training. I didn't have a vocal coach. I didn't even have decent clothes to wear. What I had was a reason. My mom was sick, and I needed to win this competition to save her life. He could see some of the kids leaning forward, hanging on every word. And I learned something during that time, Henry continued. I learned that talent isn't about having the most expensive lessons or the fanciest clothes. It's about having something real to say, something true. He paused, looking out at all those young faces. When you get up on this stage tonight, some of you are going to sing perfectly, every note on pitch, every run executed flawlessly. And that's great. But perfect isn't what people remember. What people remember is real. What people remember is honest. Henry thought about his own performance, the cracked notes, the raw emotion, the way his voice had broken on the high parts because he was singing from a place deeper than technique. So my advice to you is this: don't try to be perfect. Try to be true. Sing about something that matters to you. Make people feel something. That's what separates a good performance from a great one. He could see Marcus in the third row, nodding along. And one more thing, Henry said. No matter what happens tonight, whether you win or lose, remember that this is just the beginning. This competition doesn't define you. Your talent, your work ethic, your character. That's what defines you. So go out there, do your best, and know that no matter what, you're already brave just for trying. The contestants applauded. Henry waved and walked off stage. His mom hugged him. That was beautiful, baby. Cole was standing there too. You're good at this, the mentorship thing. Maybe we should add that to your schedule. Visiting programs, talking to young artists. Maybe, Henry said. They watched the competition from the wings. Marcus went forth. His performance was rough, pitchy in places, nervous energy making him rush the tempo. But there was something there, something raw and real. He didn't win, didn't even place in the top 3. But when he came off stage, he was grinning. I did it, Marcus said to Henry. I was so scared, but I did it. You sure did. How'd it feel? Amazing. Terrifying. I want to do it again. Henry laughed. Then you will. Keep practicing. Keep working. This is just the start. Later, after the competition ended and the new winners were announced, Henry and his family walked out to the parking lot. Not to a bus stop this time. They had a car now. Nothing fancy, but it was theirs. Cole walked with them. You heading back to the studio tomorrow? Henry asked. Yeah, got a new artist coming in. Young kid, reminds me of you, actually. Lots of raw talent, needs refinement. You'll be good for them, Cole smiled. Thanks. That means a lot, coming from you. They reached Henry's car. His mom got in the driver's seat. She'd gotten her license back once her health improved. Henry stood by the passenger door, looking back at the community arts center. You good? Cole asked. Yeah, just thinking. About? About how much has changed, how different everything is now. Cole nodded. Pretty different from a year and a half ago. Yeah. Henry looked at Cole, really looked at him. This man who was his biological father but had never been his dad, This man who'd abandoned them, but who'd also paid for his mom's surgery, who'd managed his career well, who'd shown up, even if it was late. "Thanks," Henry said, "for everything, for being here, for helping." "You don't have to thank me. I know, but I want to." There was a moment, brief but real, where they looked at each other and something passed between them. Not love exactly, not the bond between father and son, but something. Respect maybe, understanding. Cole held out his hand. Henry shook it. "See you next week?" Cole asked. "Studio session?" "Yeah, see you then." Henry got in the car, his mom started the engine, and they pulled out of the parking lot. As they drove away, Henry looked back one more time. Cole was standing there under the streetlight, watching them go. He raised his hand in a wave. Henry waved back. Then he turned forward, looking ahead at the road stretching out in front of them. Behind them was everything they'd survived. The poverty, the sickness, the fear, the struggle. Ahead was everything they'd built. The success, the health, the security, the future. His mom reached over and squeezed his hand. "Proud of you, baby," she said. "Proud of us," Henry corrected. She smiled. "Yeah, proud of us." They drove home together, leaving the community arts center behind, but carrying its lessons forward. Henry was 15 now, still young, still learning, still growing. But he wasn't the same scared 10-year-old who'd stood at that registration desk counting quarters from a shoebox. He was Henry Brooks, professional singer, survivor, fighter, and, most importantly, his mother's son. He looked down at his wrist, at the place where the athletic tape used to be. The words weren't there anymore, but he could still feel them, tattooed on his heart. Protect Mom. Mission accomplished.
Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.